Hi everyone, so today I'm going to be testing the Derwent Drawing pencils on Pastelmat paper, and I'll be showing you how they layer and blend and how they compare to the hard oil-based pencils like Polychromos. So these pencils are slightly softer and they have a beautifully muted earthy colour range, and last year they actually released a full set of 72, so they increased it by about 24 colour pencils, so there's a bigger range. So they're especially lovely for natural subjects, warm fur tones, soft background layers and atmospheric underpaintings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a quick swatch comparison, and then I'll show you how they behave when creating a small patch of fur. So I'm going to be starting with a simple swatch so you can see how the pencil behaves on Pastelmat. And with very light pressure you can see that the colour goes down quite quickly because this core is larger and softer than Pastelmat. So I'm using the ivory black here. So although you can see the tooth, the coverage is much better. And I'm only using light pressure with this, so I'm building up my layers, and you'll notice it layers very smoothly without needing much pressure at all. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to increase the pressure slightly. So then the pigment really fills the tooth of the Pastelmat and it gives it a very soft velvety look. Now what I'm going to do now, so that's the ivory black Derwent Drawing. So now I'm going to be using the black in the Polychromos. Okay, and then you can see the difference. So this is definitely a harder feeling lead than the Derwent Drawing. You can see it's not as dark and rich as the Derwent Drawing ivory black. So it feels a lot firmer and slightly sharper, but it does give a more precise edge, whereas the Derwent Drawing pencil looks softer and more diffused. And this one actually takes a lot more layers to actually fill in the tooth, whereas you can see the Derwent Drawing actually fills up a lot quicker. Okay. So now I'm going to create a small patch of warm toned fur, because this is where these pencils really shine. And they're beautiful for nature animal subjects, especially when you want softness and warmth rather than sharp, crisp detail. So what I've done, I just move things about. I've just done a real quick sketch of a fox's ear. And what I'm going to do, you can see that properly. Sorry, this tape doesn't stick properly. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with very light layers using gentle strokes in the direction of the fur growth. So I've chosen the ivory black, the apricot, the cool grey, the Chinese white and the carbon grey for this. And what I'm going to do is, let me just sharpen these a bit first of all. Just bear with me, I'm going to start with the Chinese white. Okay. So because the pencils are softer, they're going to deposit the colour quickly, so I don't need to press hard at all. And this makes them really nice to use if you prefer a lighter touch or if you struggle with hand pressure. So let me just start with this. So you're not going to... Oh yeah, you can see it. So this is a good thing with the Derwent Drawing Chinese white. is that it's a lot better than the other whites, because where the core's thicker and it's softer, you can see it better. And so I'm just going to come down here. So I'm just doing the fluffy fur. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is just to sort of show you, the sorts of things these pencils can do. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show, once I've actually added all the base layers down for this, I'm going to show you how the Polychromos can work on top of these, because that's the good thing with Polychromos, is the fact that you can actually use them. You can use them all on their own, or you can actually use them on top of colour pencils like the Derwent Drawing. So I'm just doing a few layers. Not pressing hard, as we don't need to. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with the cool grey. I'm just going to go in over the top. So you can see how the colours blend together, and they blend quite naturally on the surface, and it creates a soft velvety finish. And this actually works so well with the actual fur. So I'm just adding a layer on top of this. So I always mention this in my tutorials about there being a sort of an ugly, messy stage, and that's when you're actually building up your layers. Okay, and what I tend to do with fur is I go from bottom to top, so you can get a really good lay down of texture. Okay, and then I'm going to come in with the carbon grey. Just going to add a bit of a point on that. So I'm just going in to add this into the centre. So this is just like the natural undercoat layers. So this is all about building up the darker tones. And I'm still going into this. Well, it sounds like I'm pressing heavily. It's because the Pastelmat's rested straight onto my desk. So when using the Derwent Drawing pencils on Pastelmat, it holds the texture. The texture of the Pastelmat holds the pigment beautifully, and that helps create that soft natural look without needing heavy burnishing. So I'm just going to go back in with the bit more of the white, just to sort of build up those layers a bit more. And then I'll come in with the cool grey. Just to sort of build it up. So we've got the white under layers peeking through. And we've got like the wisp of the fur. And again, still not pressing firmly because we don't need to. And then I'm going to come back in with the carbon grey. Because I just want to get rid of that tooth. Okay, and then a bit more of that white. So that's the good thing with Pastelmat. From my previous demo, different services, I did the one of them was the Pastelmat, and you could see how many layers it took. Okay, and let's just add in some of the fur. So this is the apricot. So I'm just not being too precious with this, but this is just purely a demonstration of what, you know, what this actually does and how it works so well as a base layer. So it doesn't look like much at the moment, but it will do. So with the larger core, you can cover more surface. All right, let's come back in with that white. So all I'm getting here is the base layers that I want to have, you know, have the colour that's peeking through. Okay, so just leave that there with the Derwent Drawing, so you can sort of see that you get quite a lot of coverage. It's really sort of silky. I mean, you look at such a beautiful pencil. So yeah, you know, even the white you can see really well on here. So if I want sharper individual hair, then I would layer personally with Polychromos. And so you've got the base layers and the overall the warmth and the overall softness from the Derwent Drawing pencils, and that, you know, and that sort of really gives a really lovely effect. But then, so that, you know, they're not designed for very sharp, crisp detail. So they're more about the softness, atmosphere, and natural warmth. So what happens when I go over with Polychromos? So I come over with this, because it's firmer, this tends to sort of go over the top really well. So you can still see, because when you use Polychromos on the top, you can still see the underlayers of the Derwent Drawing peeking through. Okay, and I'm just going to come in with the cold grey too. So you can see all the different fur texture with this, and you don't lose the quality underneath. And then what I would do is, because it's usually sort of quite a bit darker underneath towards the bottom of where the ear is, so you can sort of add the black to the top of that. So I didn't actually fill in the full tooth using the Derwent Drawing. Normally I would, but this is just to sort of show you what a combined brand does. So I can use a lot more pressure if I wanted to. And I could also finish it off as well with the ivory black. And then, I don't know, I'd probably use something like a terracotta. Just sort of go in. Over the top of that. And obviously I'd use other colours as well, but you can sort of see what a great foundation the Derwent Drawings provide. So if I was to use, say, Polychromos on its own, the layers, you know, could take ages, and that's fine. You can do that if you just want to use one brand of pencil. But if I for instance wanted to sort of, I don't know, if I was doing a commission and I wanted, you know, to not have to use so many layers, then that's when the you know, the Derwent Drawings, you know, that they come in handy, and they also offer a different sort of outcome. And so you can use all the different angles. So if I'd go back in with the Polychromos black, and let's try the Polychromos white. So this is just not perfect, but it's just to give you an idea of the sorts of things that you can do with a combination of a brand of pencils, but also mainly so that you can sort of see what the Derwent Drawings can do. So you can sort of see, I like I mentioned earlier. They're not destined for like sharp, finer details, and it's the Polychromos and other brands that can sort of bring that out, but you've still got the richness underneath. So just to summarise, the Derwent Drawing pencils are softer than many oil-based pencils, so like the Polychromos, and they have a beautifully muted earthy palette. So they're particularly useful for natural subjects, warm fur tone, soft background layers, and atmospheric underpaintings. So on a textured surface like Pastelmat, they create a really lovely velvety finish and layer very easily with light pressure. So I hope this gives you a helpful idea of how they behave and where they might fit into your own coloured pencil work. So if you enjoy softer, more painterly effects in your animal drawings, these are definitely worth exploring alongside your harder pencils rather than instead of them. So I hope you enjoyed the demonstration, and I will see you next time.